One of my earliest memories is when I was a very small child lying awake in my bed in the middle of the night, staring at the scary shadows on the ceiling. I remember hearing the rain at the window and the wind rustling through the trees outside, and being afraid of the dark moving shadows that they cast on my bedroom wall, thinking that there were giant hands coming to grab me and scoop me up from the warmth of my bed and take me off into the darkness to dissect me in Uncle Ernest's garden shed with some giant rusty tweezers. The wind blowing through the gap in the old wooden window frame of the bedroom, causing my homemade, highly flammable Blue Peter Advent crown hanging from the ceiling to spin around like it was possessed by the insane undead spirit of John Noakes himself. It was like some terrifying evil monster that I'd probably seen on Doctor Who was outside trying to blow the house down. What sounded like tree roots ripping, as zombified evil flower pot men puppets were digging their way from underground from their buried coffins and clawing at the windows, trying to get inside so they could scoop out and eat my brains through my eye socket. It was the late 1960s, and as my night terror grew, suddenly a familiar sound would come to soothe me. It was a haunting, howling, musical sound coming from somewhere outside in the windy, dark, wet night. I had no idea what it was, or exactly where the sound came from, but I knew that it was somehow my friend, and it wouldn't let anything harm me. The magical sound would swirl around my dark bedroom and seemed to soak up all the bad energy from the evil flower pot men in the garden before gently fading away and taking me back into my dreams.
Of Finsbury Park. Singing me to a peaceful sleep, saving me
When I was about 6 years old, I was allowed to play outside in my garden with clothes pegs. But Mother told me never to go through the big black wrought iron gate at the bottom of my garden.
Whatever you do, Edgar, you must never go through that bottom gate by yourself. There are only bad things beyond that gate. You'll either get abducted by an evil stranger with a comb-over, smelling of B.O. and whiskey and pipe smoke, driving a Ford Angular, or you'll get eaten alive by stray dogs foaming at the mouth with rabies, or run over by teenagers in a stolen car eating peanuts. You might get bludgeoned to death with a trampoline by an escape patient from the nut house. You would like that, would you?
No, Mother.
Don't go through that bloody gate, then!
Despite Mother's dire warnings about what fate may lie in the foreboding world beyond the garden gate, one day, curiosity must have got the better of me, and I nervously lifted the rusty latch that was laced with cobwebs. I slowly pushed the gate open, thoroughly expecting some kind of siren to go off, or the gate to be electrified, or to fall through a trapdoor that would flush me away into the drains and away to be processed by the local sewerage works. But none of my fears happened, and I escaped through the garden gate into the outside world. Tunnel Road was a short row of dilapidated terraced houses dating from the early 1900s that led to a subway that went under the railway line. I remember 6-year-old me walking slowly and curiously towards the subway in a state of excited terror, thoroughly expected to be abducted or run over or attacked by rabid dogs at any moment, just as Mother had warned. Just then, a man with a comb-over, smoking a pipe, drove past in a Ford Angular. I sniffed the air, and I got the faint but distinctive smell of whiskey, B.O. and pipe smoke. I froze in terror. But luckily, he carried on up the road and out of sight. I don't think he could have seen me. Phew. Well, that was lucky. I remember being able to smell the smoke of the burning coal fires that belched black, sooty smoke from the chimneys of every house on our street, leaving a thin black film of soot over virtually everything. When I picture it now, in my mind, I can hear the theme tune of Coronation Street. In fact, I'm sure I can remember Enid Sharples living on our street at some point. As I walked past the front bay windows of each house, I could hear the line whistle of a television set coming from within, and the reassuring sound of "Watch with Mother." There was a small bunch of older boys sat on the grit bin at the end of the road, looking over onto the railway line. I walked up to the older boys and said, "Hello, my name's Edgar Gamage. Why are you on that grit bin?" They briefly glanced down at me from their grit bin castle, but seemed far more interested in what was going on over the wall on the railway line. I suddenly heard a very familiar sound. It was the calming night music, but it didn't seem so calm. It seemed decidedly angry. As I peered through a gap in the wall, I saw the most incredible machine bearing down on me at great speed. Well, I presumed it was a machine, but it seemed to have a face with sad eyes, and what looked like a mouth with snarling teeth. Was it some kind of monster or fire-breathing dragon? As it roared past, it gave out a mournful cry and raced by, pulling a train behind it, leaving a cloud of rather wonderful smelling white smoke in its wake.
Wait! Bully moose!
Shouted one of the older boys, as the train disappeared out of sight and into the distance. It did indeed leave the calm, beautiful, soothing music in the crisp spring air. Was that a Ballymoss? I inquired to one of the older boys. He all turned and laughed at me.
You idiot. That was Ballymores, number 18.
What's number 18?
I asked. They wouldn't tell me.
Just then, Mother came bounding down the street
You are
towards
a
me.
naughty little boy. It's a wonder you haven't been run over.
I did see a man with a comb over just now, driving up the street in a rusty Ford Angular. But he didn't get me.
That strange man is your Uncle Ernest, if anyone asks.
Mother dragged me away by the ear back home, much to the amusement of the boys on the grip bin. But my experience that day would change my life forever.
Uncle Ernest drives his rusty Ford Anglia down the street. Ill intentions in his mind, Jesus, sandals upon his feet. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Whiskey on his breath, yes, like his brother said. Greasy comb over in a hand, shandy shake, a constant stoop that gives him backache. BO and pipe smoke in the air, sweaty palms and sweaty pits, but he doesn't care. He used to drive a Mr. Whippy ice cream van. He will still sell you a flake or a screwball if he can. But the council banned him on uncommon grounds. Now Uncle Ernest no longer does his rounds. Apart from in his rusty Ford Angular, that's tires are worn. If you get in his way, he'll give you his horn. Beep, beep. He'll give you his horn. Beep, beep.
In the 6-week school holiday, Mother eventually allowed me out on licence to play with the older boys at the end of the road. The deal being that I had to be back home before the first street light came on. That was easy. I had an intense fascination with street lights. Back then, most of the streetlights on little back streets like ours had little clocks in the base, and a man from the council had the job of going round every single streetlight in town, altering the clocks as the nights drew in or out and the required switch-on time altered with the change in seasons. One very nice man from the council was one day in the process of adjusting the streetlight clocks down our road, and I'd stood next to him at the lamp base, and I watched him work. I asked him what he was doing, and he very kindly shown me how to change the switch clocks. I soon found a way of discreetly breaking into the base of the pillar where the clocks were, with a garden rake and a hammer, to change the times of the streetlight illumination on our street to give myself an extended playtime in the evening. This all made me quite popular with the older boys, and I was soon invited to play down on the bumper with them.
Gonna change your clock. Gonna change your clock. Gonna change your clock. Oh no, the wires and trip out your sock.
To this day, I've no idea why it was called the bumper. But the bumper was a patch of wasteland next to the railway line that had the gutted shell of an Austin Cambridge sat facing the passing trains. It was known as the ghost car. Me and my friend Bernard would sit in the ghost car pretending to drive. Well, he did, I wasn't allowed to drive. Suddenly, the semaphore signal at the end of the station would clatter as it changed, meaning that a train was approaching. Bernard would pull the car up at our imaginary level crossing and would excitedly wait for a train to approach. After a few minutes, a short freight train passed southbound.
Oh, it's only time 3.
Bernard said, disappointedly.
Type 3. So, what's in number 18?
I asked, vaguely trying to sound as if I knew what I was talking about.
Number 18. What's in number 18?
Laughed Bernard.
Oh, it's one of those things that makes that noise. You know.
In our conversation, we hadn't noticed the northbound train approaching at speed.
My God, that's very realistic.
There. One of them.
One of the smoke-bellowing musical monsters roared past with its train.
1021!
Shouted Bernard.
What? I thought that was number 18.
That was number 21 you do first.
What's the difference between a number 21 and a number 18 then?
Oh, I can't believe this.
They both look the same to me.
For a kid that can make the streetlights come on later than they should do, you're a dipstick. Look, they're called Deltics, and there's 22 of them, each with 22 different numbers. You do understand the concept of numbers?
Yes.
Right, well, these Deltics, they each have a number between 9,000 and 9,021. We call 9,018 number 18, 9,021 is number 21, and so on.
Doesn't sound overly complicated.
No, it's not.
What would you call 9,000 then?
Number 22, of course.
What's that?
And just is. You do ask some stupid questions, you do.
As the day wore on, not only did I see another 7 Deltics pass by, numbers 4, 5, 9, 12, 14, 21 and number 9,000. Sorry, I mean number 22. But I also learnt about brash 2s, brash 4s, type 3s, peaks and bogcarts. On the road that led down to the bumper, there was a mysterious little ramshackle black garage made of corrugated iron that backed onto an adjacent chicken coop. One day, as me and Bernard walked down the bumper to play railway crossings on the ghost car, I noticed that the black wooden doors of the garage were slightly open, and I spotted a little sign above the garage which said, Bag End.
Hey Bernard, look. Bag End's open.
Oh, that's Les Walters' place, that is.
Oh, did you get it?
Oh, it's number 16. Gordon Islander. Good one, that is. Good.
I couldn't help but walk up to the door and take a peek inside. There was a couple of huge, dusty blackened light bulbs hanging from old rope effect wires dangling from the low roof, giving off a dim, warm glow. Stacked around the walls of the garage were countless old dusty televisions and radios. It was like a little valve-powered Aladdin's cave. Sat on a little stool in the middle of it all was what looked like a wizard behind an old bush black and white TV set that had the back cover removed. The wizard seemed to be making some adjustments inside the television, where I could just see the orange glow of multiple dusty glass valves. The little wizard had a mirror positioned in front of the screen so that he could see the results of his tinkering from behind the set. Never in my life had I seen anything quite so mysterious, yet fascinating. My eyes darted around the many old Bakelite radios that peered out from the shadows. Suddenly the wizard looked up at me and Edgar and said,
I think the picture hall's gone.
and we ran for our lives! Although, I'm not exactly sure why. Down the bumper, there was a little unofficial rubbish tip, next to an unofficial waste pipe that came out from somewhere underneath the nearby British ropes factory and oozed out putrid dark red rusty water into a nearby stream that always seemed to have a lot of dead fish floating in it. Most mornings in the summer holidays, I'd pay the tip a visit and go for a little rummage, just in case anything interesting had been dumped overnight. My dream was to find either an old television down there or a valve radio. But I was never quite so lucky, only ever finding things like rusty empty cans of dog food. Once I found a short chain of very strange various sized glass beads, a load of rotten tangerines, all with a single bite taken out of them, some rope, a woman's single high-heeled shoe, and several empty toothpaste tubes of a brand of toothpaste that I'd never heard of, called lube.
There was a little rubbish tip next to a waste pipe that came out from somewhere underneath the nearby British rope site and oozed out putrid, dark red rusty water into a nearby stream that seemed to always have a lot of dead fish floating in it at night. My dream was to find either an old television down there or a valve radio dumped, but I was never quite so lucky, only ever finding rusty, empty cans of dog food, a short chain of very strange, various sized glass beads that looked rude, a load rotten tangerines, all with a single bite, some rope, a single woman's high-heel shoe and some tights, an empty toothpaste tube of a brand of toothpaste that I'd never heard of called lube.
Bernard and I did once find an old pram on the tip and promptly converted it into our very own first-class open half-brake Mark I railway carriage and towed it behind Bernard's shiny brand new rally chopper, which we had just christened D9020 Nimbus only hours earlier, before we had a catastrophic derailment whilst hauling the Tyne-Tees Pullman as we hurtled down Bumper Hill with the pram, I mean the coaching stock in tow, which wasn't fitted with air brakes, causing it to catch up with Nimbus, tangling the washing line that we were using as coupling and the chopper's, I mean Nimbus's back wheel and chain. Ironically, just then, the real Nimbus hurtled past on the main line with the down Yorkshire Pullman. As we lay on Bumper Hill, entangled in the wreckage of our makeshift bike and pram train, with Bernard bleeding quite heavily from a gash to his knee.
Have you had my watching line? I had your Uncle Ernest Long John sunning on that.
Uncle Ernest wasn't my real uncle, and he'd lived with Mother and me, and he worked on the railway. But I needed to couple the loco to the coaching stock.
You come here with that. Give me my bloody watching line back. You're a rum lad, you are. You're a rum un.
As the 1960s turned into the 1970s, I learned more about the 22 Deltics that stormed past my house both day and night. In my early childhood, I hadn't really thought very much about where they were going to, or where they were coming from, or exactly what their purpose was. I soon learned of the Deltic's legendary status. They all carried names, either of racehorses for the speed, or regiments for the power. And they were the kings of the East Coast Main Line, working the crack Anglo-Scottish services between London King's Cross and Edinburgh Waverley. Oh yes. One day in August 1971, Uncle Ernest took me on the train down to London. Unfortunately, we weren't hauled down to London behind a Deltic, because Deltic hauled services and got better things to do than to call at Retford. We had to make do with a filthy, tired-looking, faded green English Electric Type 4, hauling a rake of filthy, decrepit, beaten-up Mark 1 compartment coaching stock that looked very much like they were only ever used for football hooligan specials. I'd never been to London before, and the prospect of going down on the train was very exciting. Uncle Ernest had brought a pack-up lunch for us both, and we sat in our seats in our dusty compartment, eating luncheon meat and salad cream sandwiches, drinking pre-mixed warm and very weak orange squash, followed by ready salted crisps and a wagon wheel. Every so often, our train was put onto a slow line so that a Deltic could overtake us at speed as we trundled along at a more sedate pace. It was about all our train could manage. To witness the power, speed and sound of these incredible machines so close was absolutely spellbinding. As we approached London, our train started to slow down, to such a point that I feared that we might actually start rolling backwards. I caught a glimpse out of the window of a load of track work around an engine shed in front of some dingy-looking tower blocks, with lots of various locos parked up, and no less than 3 Deltics all parked up together. This was an unbelievable sight for me. This was Finsbury Park Depot, home of the 8 Deltic racehorses. We plunged into a dark, foreboding tunnel, and we seemed to be descending. It felt quite disorientating, especially as the carriage lights weren't working and we were in total darkness. Our train briefly emerged out of the darkness of the tunnel into daylight, and we were in a cutting with lines going off in all angles, both over us and underneath us. Then we plunged back into darkness, slowing to a crawl before a train of old Mark 1 compartment stock edged out into the swanky daylight, creaking and groaning over a massive array of pointwork and under the huge roof of King's Cross Station. On the right-hand side of our train, there were 2 more Deltics parked up, along with a couple of brush 4s and brush 2s. This was King's Cross Passenger Loco, where all the locomotives were refuelled and serviced before working back northbound. We slowly crept under a massive glass canopy roof, and I could instantly recognise the reverberating hum of a Deltic. On our left-hand side, 9004 Queen's Own Islander stood at the head of a train of the new tinted window air-conditioned coaching stock. Our train abruptly creaked to a halt, and me and Uncle Ernest alighted onto the platform. As we walked to the southernmost end where the loco that had hauled us to London, D206, stood at the buffer stops, its engine making its familiar whistling sound. But then, something strange happened. The engine notes slowed, and the whistling stopped as the engine shut down. I've never heard this before. It sounded like it was dying. As we walked past the faded green beast that had hauled us to London, albeit at only just above walking pace, behind it, in the next platform, I saw the giant yellow nose end of a Deltic, splattered with the black remnants of 1,000,000 flies that had all been quietly going about their business in the English countryside before having their little lives abruptly and violently ended by hitting a Deltic nose at 100 miles an hour. It was the Deltic that had overtaken us south of Peterborough. 9018 Ballymoss stood silently in platform 5, on its own and with no coaches. Suddenly, from deep within its bowels, a rattling noise began, The rattling became a rumble that erupted into the familiar Deltic hum, and a huge cloud of black smoke bellowed from the Deltic's roof up towards the stained glass canopy of the huge station roof. Startled a couple of pigeons, one of which evacuated its bowels over Uncle Ernest's freshly ironed and ill-fitting demob suit. Bloody hell! Oh no, bloody hell! So this is what a Deltic sounded like started up. My word! It was like the voice of God reverberating under the canopy in his very own diesel-fueled cathedral of power. Ballymoss gave out a blast of its horn before revving its mighty engine and shooting off along platform 5, leaving a blue, foggy haze drifting over the concourse, choking passengers coming out of the buffet with their takeaway travellers' fare teas. I was absolutely overwhelmed and quite mesmerised by all this, as Uncle Ernest hurried me off towards the entrance to the tube so that we could go and visit Auntie Evelyn in Fulham.
Traveller's fare will get you there for terrible food at a very high price. Please don't try our pies, they're not very nice. Traveller's fare, our tea's too hot to bear, but we don't care.
Whilst visiting Auntie Evelyn, we all went for a walk down Fulham Bridge Road. Over the bridge, where we sat on the grass in Battersea Park and had more luncheon meat and salad cream sandwiches, pickled eggs, crisps and warm orange squash. With a magnificent view of Battersea Power Station in the background, running at full capacity powering London during the evening peak, spewing black smoke into the city air from all 4 of its gigantic white chimneys. As we walked back up to Auntie Evelyn's flat, I noticed that all the rubbish bins were out on the street ready for emptying. I couldn't help but marvel at the far superior quality of rubbish that was within the bins of Fulham compared to the meagre pickings that were usually on offer in the bins of the little northern backwater town of Retford where I lived. There was various old interesting light stands, a lava lamp, a burnt-out radio carcass, a rusty psychedelic electric fan, a lime green hairdryer, and an Engelbert Humperdinck Greatest Hits record. Unfortunately, Uncle Ernest prevented me from scavenging any of these items and taking them home with me, so they had to stay there to waste. Later that evening, we travelled on both Q stock and 1938 stock on the London Underground as we headed back to King's Cross to catch our train back home to Retford. As our dilapidated, wooden-floored 1938 tube car rattled along through the dark tunnels of the Northern Line, I noticed, under the dim, flickering bulbs, a particular gentleman sitting reading the Daily Mail newspaper. I couldn't help thinking looked rather familiar. My God, it was Brian Kent from Play School! What were the chances of that?
1, 2, 3, 4. Ready to play? What's the day? It's Thursday.
Brian Kent alighted at Angel Station and went about his business. As Uncle Ernest and I ascended the final short escalator to the station concourse at King's Cross, that had the ever-present smell in the air of diesel fumes, stale beer and urine, my ears were met with the reverberating hum of idling Deltic engines.
Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine. Just look at the state that you're in. Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine. Just look at the state that you're in. King's Cross in the 1970s, a dead pigeon in the station clock. Taxi cab cabs wait for fares, queuing round the block. Wooden escalators, smoking on the tube. Excuse me, sir, can you spare some change for a wimpy for a dude? Dirty girls who will turn tricks for under a fiver, give you a discount if you're a train driver. Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine. Just look at the state that you're in. Just look at the state that you're in. Steam heating pipes wait for the Scottish night trains. Parcel borrows sit at the platform end in heavy grey rain. Football fans in tartan vests, flare jeans, ankle socks and hairy chest. Class 31 on a Suburban over winding lines. Ticket collector jumps on and issues fines. Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine. Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine. Diesel fumes, stale beer and urine.
Uncle Ernest looked frantically at the information board. Oh, bloody hell. We bloody missed the train. He walked up to a station porter and said just one word. Retford.
What about Redford?
When's the next train, Retford? When's Retford?
You on platform 4, 2205.
We'd missed our train home, and the next one was a 2-hour wait. And as much as I'd relished 2 hours watching Deltics coming and going at King's Cross, there was one thing that I wanted even more, and that was a ride behind a Deltic. But I knew that the chances of one of the 22 mighty Deltics being at the head of our all-station stopping slow boat back to Retford was about the same as seeing a flying pig over Battersea Power Station. There was a rake of the brand new tinted window Mark IID air-conditioned coaches sat in platform 4. According to the platform information board, this was the 1950 service to Edinburgh, calling at Doncaster, York, Newcastle and Edinburgh, which would most likely be Delta called, but it didn't stop at Retford. So this was unfortunately no use to us.
Come on, I'm bugging him. I'm going to be bloody waiting here for bloody 2 hours. We'll take this to Doncaster. We'll take this to Doncaster. We're going to be straight back to Retford from Doncaster.
Said Uncle Ernest, pointing at the immaculate set of coaches sitting in platform 4. Oh, the excitement was palpable. As we walked up the platform alongside the train, I was hoping, I was praying that it would be a Deltic on the front. But I couldn't hear a Deltic. Oh, please, don't, God. Don't let it be a brush fall. No, please. But I knew deep down that the fact that I couldn't hear the reverberating throbbing of an idling Deltic on the front, and with just over 5 minutes left until departure, meant that it almost certainly was not going to be a Deltic on the front. How the injustice! My one shot at riding behind a Deltic, and I draw the short straw. I felt ill. Although it might have been the pickled eggs from earlier. As we got close to the front of the train, I could indeed see the bulbous yellow-nosed end of a silent Deltic coupled up to our train. Oh, the joy! Just then, I heard the rattling calamity sound coming from deep inside of the Deltic. And a thick black cloud of smoke erupted from the top of the loco as its engines sprang into life, and its deafening but beautiful hum began. More pigeons were startled in the roof, and Uncle Ernest ran for cover as a dollop of white pigeon muck fell upon him.
I bloody believe this. Twice in one bloody day.
As he dodged it, it caught him on the shoulder. But then, something rather unexpected happened. Just as we reached the final carriage door before the loco, the rattle happened all over again. And another black cloud of smoke erupted from the Deltic's roof, but at a different angle. And the hum got twice as loud. What had just happened? I looked at the roof of the loco and I could see two plumes of bluey-white fumes coming from the middle, forming what looked like a letter V. What did this mean? Does a Deltic have two engines, I wondered? I quickly looked at the side of the rippled, dirty bodywork of the huge loco at the head of our train to see which one it was. The white number 9007 peered through the brown grime on the blue paint that adorned the side of the locomotive, and a brass oil-stained nameplate with a red painted background, and the name Pinzer sat proudly at the centre of the loco.
Come on, lad, let's get on before any more bloody pigeons decide to crap on me.
Uncle Ernest and I boarded the first coach behind the Deltic, and we took our seats at a table of 4. Even the double-glazed tinted windows of our brand-new second-class Mark IID coach couldn't keep out the reverberating throb of the mighty Deltic's twin engines. Uncle pulled out a flask and poured himself a cup of weak, tepid tea.
Hey, do you want some? It's good.
No, thank you, Uncle Ernest. Could I go and have a look out of the window?
No, don't lean against that bloody door. You might bloody fall out on some bloody trap.
No, I won't. I went through the sliding door into the front vestibule, and I pulled down the drop light window, letting in the full volume of the idling Deltic engines. I stuck my head out and saw another Deltic slowly easing its train out of Gasworks Tunnel and over the pointwork into one of the adjacent platforms. It was 9017, the Durham Light Infantry. Just behind it, a Brush 2 spluttered out of one of the tunnel throats with a suburban train. And then I heard the guard's whistle echo as he blew it from the rear of our train. It was time for us to go, and time for the magic to begin. Pinzer blasted her horns. The brakes were released, and the mighty engine note rose slightly as we gently started moving along the platform under the great, dark, stained station canopy of King's Cross, out into the tangle of pointwork. We glided past the fueling point, where 9002, the King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry, stood behind 2 English Electric Type 4s, a Brush 4 and a Brush 2. Then we plunged into the darkness of Gasworks Tunnel, and a wall of sound hit me as the reverberating Deltic engines, still at little more than an idle, were encased by the tunnel walls. And then it happened. The engine note rose as both engines revved hard, roaring for all they were worth at full power, belching pure white smoke out like someone vigorously shaking 2 talcum powder containers. The sound was incredible, so loud that it shook your very soul, not to mention the contents of my stomach. At one point I thought I might projectile vomit luncheon meetings, salad cream sandwiches, pickled egg and warm morning squash down the side of the train. Thick white smoke bellowed into the coach through the open window, causing passengers sitting down in their seats inside the coach to cough and splutter. This was the single most exciting thing that I'd ever witnessed in my life. Then we erupted back out into the fading daylight, climbing up Bed Isle, past Freightliner Junction, then back into darkness as we plunged into the throat of Copenhagen Tunnel, both engines relentlessly powering us up the gradient of Holloway Bank and out of London. Moments later, the tower blocks overlooking Finsbury Park Depot came into view. As we powered past the Rainbow Theatre, I noticed that on the billboard the Byrds and Rita Coolidge were playing. As our train hurtled past Finsbury Park Depot, there was only one Deltic on shed, and with our ever-increasing speed, I couldn't make out which one it was, and there was a peak in the way. through Finsbury Park Station, gradually picking up speed to the point where I could no longer bear to pull my head out the window. The lights of Hornsey shot past in a blur. Then Wood Green, New Southgate, New Barnet were all passed at a line speed of 100 miles an hour. By William Garden City, I went back to my seat with Uncle Ernest, who still had a bit of Mother's pork pie and some Swiss roll left over for us to share, all washed down with what was left of the warm orange squash. They had some very dubious material floating around in it.
What have you got in your face?
What is it? What?
You're very covered in soot.
Am I? I quickly went to the toilet, where in the mirror, to my horror, I could see that I was indeed covered in a thick layer of soot and oil. I washed my face in the sink, and I dried myself with a coarse light green paper towel before having a wee, managing to cover my shoes in the process as I struggled to stand still and keep aiming to the toilet bowl as the train crossed a set of points at speed.
Oh no, it's gone everywhere!
I later discovered that the face soot and oil was quite usual and was affectionately called Deltic smallpox, and was viewed very much as a badge of honour by the railway fraternity. Not so much my wet shoes and slacks though. Later on, I walked down the train to the buffet car to buy a can of pop to try and get the lingering taste of orange squash and pickled eggs out of my mouth. There was a long queue at the buffet, so I instead decided to hang out of one of the drop light windows in the next coach. I could clearly hear Penzer's twin Napier Deltic engines roaring through the night just a few coaches ahead of me. As I leaned my head out of the drop light window, a refreshing spray wafted into my face from the slipstream. After a minute or so, more of the fine spray landed upon my face. I couldn't help noticing that it had a strange smell and left a tangy taste on my lips. I later learned that this was the contents of a train toilet being flushed onto the track at high speed and spraying back up onto the carriages. I got sprayed several more times before I realised what it was. But to me, this whole experience had been like a baptism. My eyes being opened to the power of Mother Napier. From now on, I would only worship one god, Deltic. When I got home, my second-hand Mark 1 chopper bike was duly painted British Rail blue with some paint that Uncle Ernest had brought back from work, and I named it 9007 Pinzer, in honour of what had now become my favourite Deltic.
It was a special announcement. This chapter terminates here. All change for the next chapter. Please ensure that you take all your belongings with you. This chapter terminates here. All change